enforcement, drag racing, and other charges for not having a license plate and running into the deputy's car. If you've got any information on that second motorcycle rider, call the Fayette County Sheriff's Office in Fayette County. Doug Evans, Fox 5 News. He's Attorney General. Former Louisville detective Jonathan Mattingly says they wanted to give Taylor time to come to the door. I hope you understood that. I didn't. Also in the recording.
It's how he gets his energy. This is his MO. And really, Russ, it puts the entire focus of the election now back on the coronavirus. And I think the economy has kind of taken second fiddle here. So I think it's definitely a game changer, and I think we're all just waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, Brian, you have to imagine that the president would rather have not gone to the hospital.
No, it's not a visual that he wants this at this time in the campaign. We'll remember in 2016 when there was the video of Hillary collapsing into that van, and many conspiracy theories sprouted off of that. So that getting off of the helicopter, waving to the cameras, showing Americans that he didn't look sick, that he in fact looked fairly normal, that was hugely important because he cannot, or at least does not want to, look weak or enfeebled by this disease. So that was an important moment on camera.
Sarah, what do you think this does to the race from here on out? I mean, we may not have any more debates at this point.
That's possible, but I think the one thing that we all got to do as Americans right now is to follow the lead of former Vice President Joe Biden and former Second Lady Jill Biden, and that is to just basically offer our love and support and prayers for President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. As far as going forward, to me, Russ, what it really highlights for me is the importance of us as Americans understanding that this is a deadly pandemic and it's nothing to play with, and it could reach anyone. And so, as Chris Wallace just said before this segment, wear your damn mask. And I would just tell people who are watching us tonight to know that we're not out of the woods yet. We got to continue to protect ourselves.
Yeah, we'll check back with the three of you in just a minute. The president's diagnosis, of course, swept Tuesday night's debate from the headlines and leaves the next two debates in doubt. Joe Biden called this week's spectacle a national embarrassment. President Trump cited unscientific polls saying that he clearly won the shout fest. Was no. The answer to whether the president would explicitly denounce white supremacists and right-wing militia went this way.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what, somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
For his part, former Vice President Biden refused to answer a question about whether he'd add members to the U.S. Supreme Court to counter the nomination of conservative Judge Amy Coney Barrett to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Now, make
sure you, in fact, let people know you're senator. I'm not going to answer the question.
The president accused Biden of being controlled by more progressive members of his party.
They're going to dominate you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now.
The Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates is already looking at how to restore order to make the next meeting less combative, saying the debate, quote, made clear that additional structure should be added to the format of the remaining debates to ensure a more orderly discussion of the issues. The next presidential debate, if there is one, will be a town hall in Miami. The debate commission considering a switch that would turn off candidates' microphones if they break the debate rules. The Trump campaign calls that changing the rules in the middle of the game. The Biden camp says it will support any new rules that will, quote, contain Donald Trump's behavior. So back to the panel now. Did that debate, I'm interested in your opinion, change any minds? And Lori, specifically, did the president in the last couple of days, I guess yesterday it was, since he denounced specifically white supremacists and the Proud Boys, is that issue in the past at this point?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that this was a debacle and that it was not a debate. I think if there were any undecideds who were watching, I think they just turned off the TV because nothing gained, nothing lost between the two. I think this issue has followed the president. This issue of race has followed the president since Charlottesville, and I know Hill, his folks said, he misspoke, but of all issues to misspeak on, denounce the group so everybody can move on. But I think also, the same goes for Biden in terms of answering questions about the U.S. Supreme Court. I think voters need to know the answers and where you're headed if you were to win.
Yeah, Theron, the president certainly doubling down on questioning the legitimacy of an election that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that he is really focused on.
And the middle of America that he needs to get over 50%. He would lose voters on either end if he took a stand. That's why he wouldn't answer the question.
All right, Brian and Theron and Lori, we'll have you back later on in the program. Thank you for agreeing to stick.
Risk undermining doctors and scientists compared coronavirus to the common flu.
We had ordinary flu seasons with more deaths.
Now, even in the middle of this pandemic, David Perdue is trying to let insurance companies deny coverage to people with pre-existing conditions like cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. David Perdue, out for himself, not for our health.
No one.
No.
Destructive. If you elect me, you're not going to have your taxes are going to be raised, not cut.
Joe Biden won't rebuild our economy. He'll burn it down.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Checkers new smoke. Destructive.
If you elect me, you're not going to have your taxes are going to be raised, not cut.
Joe Biden won't rebuild our economy. He'll burn it down.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Checkers new smoke.
And probably half the Senate Republicans on the Judiciary Committee. So that is why Washington and the American political leadership in general is a bit on edge. The Biden campaign obviously was concerned. So far, it looks like everybody in their traveling party to the debate has tested negative. But that is on edge. Never mind the operational impact this is having on the Trump campaign short term.
How do you think it impacts voters? And that's a very tough question. All I can say is this, that coronavirus has been very difficult on the Trump White House. It has not been something that they have controlled very well, and they have paid a price for it. So you wonder how it plays out this time around with voters.
Look, I think you bring up, that's exactly the point I would have made, Jeff, is I don't know how they're going to react now. I can tell you how they've reacted before, right? Whenever the virus is front and center, the president has been paying a political price. I believe that that a larger chunk of Joe Biden's lead is due to perceptions of how the president has handled this pandemic. That said, the president's battling here, and there's certainly going to be an empathetic feel to this as well. I think the vice president and his campaign need to be very mindful of tone, need to be very mindful of, and I think if you think about it, Joe Biden is essentially running on character, running on the idea that he is full of empathy. You better have empathy for everybody, not just for the folks that support you.
Meet the Press, Sunday, 10 a.m.
It's worse. But Biden's job-killing tax increase would be even more destructive.
If you elect me, you're not going to have your taxes are going to be raised, not cut.
Joe Biden won't rebuild our economy. He'll burn it down.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
President Donald J. Trump delivered on the impossible in his first term. And in his second term, he will continue to fight for you. President Trump will end our reliance on China, eradicate the coronavirus, and make our medicines and supplies here in the United States. Create 10 million jobs in the next 10 months. This is President Trump's vision for America, one of boundless optimism and certainty in America's greatness.
I'm Donald J. Trump.
And probably half the Senate Republicans on the Judiciary Committee. So that is why Washington and the American political leadership in general is a bit on edge. The Biden campaign obviously was concerned. So far, it looks like everybody in their traveling party to the debate has tested negative. But that is on edge. Never mind the operational impact this is having on the Trump campaign short term.
How do you think it impacts voters? And that's a very tough question. All I can say is this, that coronavirus has been very difficult on the Trump White House. It has not been something that they have controlled very well, and they have paid a price for it. So you wonder how it plays out this time around with voters.
Look, I think You bring up, that's exactly the point I would have made, Jeff, is I don't know how they're going to react now. I can tell you how they've reacted before, right? Whenever the virus is front and center, the president has been paying a political price. I believe that that a larger chunk of Joe Biden's lead is due to perceptions of how the president has handled this pandemic. That said, the president's battling here, and there's certainly going to be an empathetic feel to this as well. I think the vice president and his campaign need to be very mindful of tone, need to be very mindful of, and I think if you think about it, Joe Biden is essentially running on character, running on the idea that he is full of empathy. You better have empathy for everybody, not just for the folks that support you.
Meet the Press, Sunday, 10 a.m.
Mild symptoms.
The White House offering only vague details.
I'm not going to get into any particular treatment that he may or may not have.
At 74 and overweight, the president is considered at higher risk for serious complications. He and the First Lady are isolating inside the White House.
For the president, there are specific factors that put him at a high risk for serious complications, so the next few days will be critical to monitoring the president.
Now begins a high-stakes hunt for anyone President Trump has had contact with during a busy week, including Tuesday night's debate, during which the Trump family violated a mandatory mask mandate. The president's senior advisor, Hope Hicks, who traveled with him this week, tested positive yesterday. The White House chief of staff saying today they learned of her diagnosis as President Trump was leaving for a New Jersey fundraiser last night.
It was deemed safe for the president to go. He socially distanced.
Hours before revealing his diagnosis, the president downplayed coronavirus in a pre-recorded message for a charity event.
I just want to say that the end of the pandemic is in sight.
Democratic rival Joe Biden sending his well wishes. He tested negative today. President Trump forced to cancel in-person appearances in a critical setback to his campaign, if not his health, 32 days before the election.
And again, the president has now gone to Walter Reed Medical Center. President Trump joining a growing list of world leaders who have tested positive for COVID-19. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was among the first major world leaders confirmed to have the virus. Johnson faced criticism for downplaying the pandemic. He was treated in an ICU for symptoms, but later recovered.
Campaign app tells you which of your contacts have or have not voted, led to emails from you asking if it was really true. To verify, we downloaded the app ourselves and checked the fine print of its terms and conditions. So if you install the Vote Joe app, you wind up at a page where it asks to see your contacts. If you click yes, it gives you a list of all your contacts with a little image next to them. Donkey means registered Democrat, elephant, registered Republican. This ballot symbol means they're in a battleground state, and you get a smiley face if you vote often and a sleepy face if you don't. So if you click on a name, it shows you which elections they voted in. But that's where it stops. You can't see who they actually voted for, just the elections they participated in. So yes, this is a real function of the app. But how does it do this, and is it accurate? Well, when you give the app access to your contacts, it takes the numbers and names in your phone and compares them to a database of public voter information kept by the Biden team. Is it accurate? Not always. The app has a disclaimer that since it's using public records, it may be inaccurate or outdated. In our test, a few contacts actually showed up as their relatives because they share phone accounts. So yes, the app does let you see voter information about your contacts using public records from past elections. That's verified. The only real way to opt out of this is saying no when it asks permission to view your contacts. And disclaimer, there's no real way to stop someone else from looking up your basic voting information because it is public record. Folks, if you've got other questions you want us to look into, send us an email.
The running short stupid, even though Harriet Tubman said they were lit. Say that, Larry. You're a disgrace.